For a reaction now on this, I'm joined by Inkatha Freedom Party leader Velenkosini Hlabisa. Hlabisa, good evening and thank you very much for your time. It's always been the position of the IFP in particular that this court case was not about the succession dispute. That matter, you've always maintained that is a matter that is a far-gone conclusion, that the Zulu royal succession battle has always been resolved into who is ascending to the throne. The courts today, I suppose, justifying that view?
Good evening, Thabo, as well as the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. As you have rightly said, the IFP welcomes the decision handed down by Justice Madondo today in Pietermaritzburg, confirming that indeed King Misuzulu Zwelithini is indeed a de facto king. We have been maintaining that traditionally the process of identifying the king of the Zulu nation was followed properly. All that remains is a legal formality that has to be effected by the president of the country. Now it is the time for the state president to issue the certificate for a legal formality, because the court has indeed confirmed that His Majesty King Misuzulu is indeed a king of the Zulu nation.
Yeah. You believe the coronation should go ahead even though some of the major issues around the Zulu monarch dispute are not yet resolved, issues of the will and issues of, I suppose, that are being raised about the forgery of the signature?
You see, I think the court, they did a wonderful job. That is why we joined Prince Misuzulu for praising Justice Madondo, because he gave clarity that the issue of the will, there is a process to deal with the will, which at large has nothing to do with the throne. And secondly, the issue of the signatures, because there were conflicting views between the two experts. The court made a good thing to allow the two princesses to lodge an appeal within 15 days so that they can prove whether indeed the signature was forged or not. But that may it be is not necessarily to do with the identification of the king. There is a process of how to identify the king of the Zulu nation, and that process was followed through the meeting of the members of the royal family, which the court looked at the minutes, the process, people who were present, and indeed the court was satisfied that that aspect was complied to. Whether there was a signature saying something else or not, it will really not be that much material in terms of the procedure that was followed by the meeting of the members of the royal family.
Yeah. You don't think those unresolved matters could be a source of disunity within the nation?
You see, Thabo, it is a common phenomenon that whenever a throne, especially at this magnitude, the throne of the Zulu nation is one of the thrones and that is known worldwide, it is an expected thing that there will be a dispute whenever the throne becomes vacant. Our prayer and appeal to the members of the royal family is that now that the court has made a judgment, we pray and appeal to the Zulu royal family members to come together and work together to provide leadership to the Zulu nation. And we also pray for His Majesty King Misuzulu Zwelithini, that may God grant him wisdom and courage to provide leadership and unite the Zulu royal family as well as the Zulu nation.
Right. Let's look at the other noises then, Babu Hlabisa, that are around this particular matter, particularly when it comes to the IFP and the ANC. some are claiming you're playing a dangerous game involving the Zulu monarch and the Zulu royal family in the political games for supremacy. How do you react to that?
The IFP has never used or involved the royal family into political issues. But the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal made a blunder when they invited His Majesty. The letter of invitation was titled His Majesty. That title only belongs to the king. And at the same time, they did not recognize the king as His Majesty, as they silenced him during the invitation in the sofa. You see, Thabo, you can't be half pregnant. It's either you accept that King Misuzulu is His Majesty or you don't. You can't do both, accept and don't accept at the same time. What the IFP has just said is that the king, through the proper process of identifying a king, that process was followed. It is not for us to entertain the dispute within the members of the royal family. For us is to accept that the proper process was done and we must respect that. I'm sure the ANC will come into sober senses now and do accept that indeed they should have long accepted the king as a de facto king and accept that only a legal aspect was still awaiting. But in terms of a tradition, His Majesty was supposed to address the Zulu nation in the province of KwaZulu-Natal last week during the SOPA.
Now, of course, the ANC, not the only party to have used the image of the king. The IFP itself tried to use the image of the king during the local government elections. You had to pull that down because of the kind of contestation that then followed. Do you think it is... it's not possible for these parties to leave the monarch out of the various political persuasions, that the monarch should be left to be above the various political persuasions and his image not be used by either of the parties?
You see, Thabo, the IFP was brave last year when an advert was released without proper approval, and it is the IFP leadership that reacted swiftly before any complaint came forth, simply because the people who were outsourced to do adverts for us, they said they thought it was proper in line with our manifesto that we partner with traditional leadership. And as the IFP leadership, we did not run away and said we do not know what has happened. We traced the problem and we retracted that advert, and we took the people who were involved into task because we felt it was wrong that was done. The IFP for many years have never used the traditional institution as a political weapon to advance its cause. And even now, when we say we partner, we give independence and separate space to traditional institutions, but we respect and recognize them as custodians and the guardians in our society whom we cannot ignore. That is why we are opposed in making AmaKhosi spectators in the local government sphere to be part of the municipalities, but do not have a right to vote. And that is why it is the IFP that fought for the king not to be regarded as a paramount chief, which was accorded by the apartheid regime, but that the king of the Zulu nation is the king, not a paramount chief.
Hlabisa, I appreciate your time and thank you very much for coming on tonight here on In Focus. Leader of Inkatha Freedom Party there, Velenkosini Hlabisa. Now,